Hi guys. Long before toothbrushes and minty paste, villagers turned to the woods, the fire, and their kitchens for something oddly effective. You might be surprised what they used. Once you find out, you'll never look at your spice rack the same way again. We're going back to 1450 tonight, somewhere in the misty folds of late medieval Europe. Perhaps France, maybe England, possibly even a border village that insists it belongs to both, depending on the taxes that year. But hold on. Get yourself comfortable first. I mean it. Adjust your blanket. Sink down into your pillow like it owes you something. Maybe lower the brightness if it's still on. This one's worth settling in for. You're about to spend a day as a very average, mildly smelly, unexpectedly resilient peasant, and fair warning, you probably won't make it through this day. If you enjoy drifting off to the sound of smoke curling from a damp thatch roof and someone muttering about the pig again getting into the barley, then you're in the right place. And while you're here, be a kind soul. Tap that like button gently, like you're brushing crumbs off a wooden bench. If you want more sleepy history, subscribing is a good idea, even if you only remember doing it in the morning. And do let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I'm always curious which time zones are falling asleep to soot and medieval soap. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. The first thing you notice when you wake is the damp, not the sound of birds or the smell of breakfast. Those are still a few hours away. No, it's the cold softness of the straw tick pressing into your spine, the persistent drip of dew slipping through a weak patch in the roof, and the vague aching reminder that you slept on your side too long because the fire went out again. There's a sheep nearby. You know this because it breathes directly into your ear. You rise slowly, not dramatically. There is no morning stretch, accompanied by inspirational music. You're wearing the same linen shift you wore yesterday, which might also be the same one from last week. It's hard to tell anymore. You scratch your arm, sniff, decide it's acceptable, and reach for your woolen overkirtle, the one with the mysterious brown stain that no one discusses. Now, teeth. To be clear, you don't have many. You're in your 30s, which makes you middle-aged in a peasant sort of way. You've got maybe 14 survivors left in there, and most of them are doing their best. This morning, you reach for the chew stick, a frayed willow twig you gnawed open weeks ago. It tastes like bark and shame, but hey, willow has mild antiseptic properties, and you tell yourself that every morning as you scrub what can loosely be called a molar. Toothpaste, sort of. You rub a mix of charcoal powder and salt across your teeth, hoping no one notices the occasional wince. Charcoal was surprisingly common. Absorbs odors, allegedly cleans, definitely makes your fingers look like you've been mining. Historical fact of the day. Medieval peasants did clean their teeth. Maybe not with minty gels, but with ash, crushed herbs, and even wool cloth. The idea that they didn't is a modern myth. Of course, dental hygiene wasn't always about health. It was often about luck, superstition, or copying what the monk down the lane said his grandmother did. Outside, the village stirs, which means one cart has rumbled by, and someone is already shouting at a goat. You throw on a cloak, still stiff from yesterday's rain, and step outside. The wind greets you like an old friend you didn't particularly want to see. There's No privacy in the village, which makes it a great place to be perpetually annoyed. Your neighbor, Adela, waves with a smug grin. Her 3 teeth are gleaming. You suspect she has secret herbs. Or a mirror. You wander to the edge of the stream to rinse your mouth. The water is cold enough to make your gums question their life choices. You spit discreetly into the reeds, where a duck gives you a side-eye judgment so sharp it might count as a weapon. And now you begin your daily walk, past the pig pen, past the guy who insists his geese are magical, past the leaning cottage that smells faintly of onions and feet. There's a boy crouched by the road, eating wild sorrel. He waves and holds up a tooth on a string. For luck, he says. Whose luck? No one knows. Historians still debate whether such charms were believed to protect the bearer from plague, or just kept the crows away. Back home, you consider breakfast, which is a strong word for boiled barley, and what might be yesterday's cabbage. You chew slowly, thinking about the splinter in your gum and the fact that the village elder swears that fennel seeds can make teeth grow back. No one believes him, but it's nice to pretend. A chicken hops onto your lap. You sigh. It's going to be a long day. Your day progresses, not with energy, but with inevitability. Mid-morning light slants through the cracked wooden shutter, like it's trying not to wake anyone. You've already gathered kindling, muttered at a stubborn donkey, and debated with your neighbor over whether or not the new priest is secretly Flemish. He is suspiciously clean. You kneel beside the hearth and stir the embers. They cough reluctantly into flame, as if protesting the effort. A small pot of weak onion broth simmers with a grim sense of duty. Your teeth twinge again. Today is scrubbing day. You don't love it, but the floors won't beat themselves, and dirt tracked in from the pigsty tends to start philosophical debates among the chickens. You reach for your broom, a bundle of dried twigs tied together with a bit of old hemp cord. Sweeping is less about removing dirt and more about evenly redistributing it into corners you can't see from the stool. You hum as you work, something old, passed down. Maybe it's a song, maybe just the rhythm of chores turned into melody. Outside, someone sneezes with great conviction. You pause to rinse your mouth again. This time, you chew a bit of sage. It's bitter, but the kind of bitter that pretends to be medicinal. According to your aunt, sage can drive out bad humors and whisper secrets to your teeth. Your aunt also once tried to boil a mouse for luck, so her advice comes with an asterisk. And now, the real task of the day, laundry. You carry a basket of linens to the stream, trailing behind you like a slow comet of effort. The water is less freezing now, only a polite level of painful. You kneel on the smooth stones and begin scrubbing ash soap and elbow grease. Your fingers prune, your back twinges. A fish stares at you with deadpan amusement. You glance at a tree nearby. Hanging from a branch is a curious sight, a bundle of hair and twine. It's a tooth talisman. Some say it wards off decay. Others say it attracts spirits of lost molars. No one agrees. That's the fun of medieval medicine. It's all very confident, and none of it tested. Historical fact of the hour. While toothbrushes in the modern sense didn't exist, chew sticks and cloth-wrapped fingers were common tools for cleaning. Even in the 15th century, Oral hygiene was connected to health. Bad breath was seen as a sign of deeper illness. But no one had floss. That's not sarcasm. No one. A dog wanders by. It might be yours. It might be the baker's. You both feed it, and neither of you claims it. It knows this, and has adjusted its attitude accordingly. You wring out the linens and sling them over a low fence. They smell like wood smoke and sage now. Better than before. Probably. Back inside, you find a wooden cup filled with warm water and cloves. You swish a little around your mouth. It stings just enough to make you feel like you've done something brave. You don't know it, but this actually is antibacterial. You do know it makes your lips tingle. In the corner, your cousin is carving tiny holes into a bit of birch bark. He says it's for catching mouth ghosts. He's probably wrong, but he once caught a weasel with a fork, so people tend to let him be. Afternoon leans into evening. Your teeth still hurt, but it's manageable. Like a pebble in the shoe of your skull. You chew carefully, thinking of the old woman who says rubbing your jaw with nettles can cure the ache. She's missing half her face, but still very persuasive. You end the day with a smile. A small one, a little crooked, but still there. And even if it's only got 12 teeth in it now, it's yours. The sun drags itself behind the hills. Like it, too, is tired of this century. You sit on a splintered bench outside your cottage, nursing a wooden bowl of turnip mash that tastes almost exactly like mashed turnip. There's a wilted sprig of parsley on top for optimism, but it's really just a garnish for your dignity. Across the lane, two children argue loudly about whether ghosts have teeth. You don't weigh in, though you quietly wonder if toothless spirits make a different kind of moan. Your gums still ache. You press a warm cloth to your jaw, the way your grandmother taught you. She claimed it soothed the fire demons in your mouth. That might sound extreme, but then again, she also swore that tying a dead mole around your neck could cure coughs, so the bar for credibility is pretty low around here. Inside, the hearth breathes faint heat, and you throw another log on, not because it's cold, but because it's comforting. The flames catch slowly, reluctantly, like even they doubt. The effort is worth it. You warm your hands and stretch your back. Everything pops. You're reminded that your body is essentially a wooden chair with feelings. Tonight, someone in the village is hosting a storytelling circle, which is code for let's all sit near someone with better firewood and pretend this counts as socializing. You wrap your cloak tighter, tug up your hood, and make your way down the footpath that has been carved more by habit than engineering. A rock tries to trip you. It's not successful, but it's close. The gathering is modest, a ring of hunched figures, each lit dimly by firelight and their own personal sense of bone-deep exhaustion. Someone passes you a cup of cider that tastes faintly like moss. You sip. It burns a little, in a good way. Maybe it'll help the toothache. Maybe it'll just make you care less. Tonight's tale is about a man who brushed his teeth so hard he summoned a river spirit. It's not a good story, but it's the best one that includes molars. The storyteller is Egil, who has only 5 teeth, but compensates by being very loud. He insists that mouth demons live beneath your tongue and that whistling before breakfast invites tooth rot. You nod politely. You've heard worse. Historical fact of the hour. Medieval folk medicine linked bad teeth to spiritual impurity, humoral imbalance, and even lunar phases. One 15th century cure for tooth pain involved reciting prayers while pressing a hot poker to the cheek, not touching it, mind you, just threatening the pain with heat. Back at your cottage, the wind has picked up. It whispers through the eaves like it's gossiping. The door creaks, dramatically, as if auditioning for a haunted play. You bolt it shut with the usual wedge of firewood and 3 crossed fingers, just in case. In the corner of your room is a small pouch of dried rosemary and sage, your version of aromatherapy. You crush a bit between your fingers and breathe it in. Earthy, sharp, a little bitter, like life, but less taxing. You sit down on your straw mattress, which has somehow gotten lumpier during the day. The pillow smells faintly of sheep. You decide not to think about why. To help with a toothache, you chew a bit of yarrow root. It numbs the tongue slightly. Also, makes you drool a little. But that's just part of the charm. Outside, an owl calls. Then something else calls back. It's not an owl. You decide not to investigate. You pull your cloak over your shoulders and lie down. There's something comforting about the simplicity of it all. The routine, the repetition, the small acts of survival. Even if your mouth feels like it's slowly mutinying, you drift off, listening to the wind, the crackle of the fire, and the faint snoring of something that may or may not be your cousin sleeping in the hayloft again. You wake before dawn, which sounds noble, until you realize it's because of the tooth. It pulses, not like a heartbeat, more like a tiny drum circle, hosted by angry fairies. You sit up slowly, hunched over like a very confused letter C. The coals in the hearth have cooled into faint, red ghosts. You poke at them with a stick until one gives off a reluctant glow. It's enough. You chew a piece of old linen, soaked in wine. It doesn't fix anything, but it makes the morning feel slightly more elegant. You like to imagine you're part of the nobility, just one with terrible luck, a leaky roof, and no money. A noble in disguise, very deep disguise. Outside, the sky is soft gray, clouds shifting like damp wool. The air is still. You take a moment to walk barefoot across the cool, packed earth. It's a strange ritual, but it helps. Grounding, you think, though no one calls it that yet. You wash your face in cold water and wince. You pat your cheeks dry with a bit of cloth that smells like soapwort and soot. And now, for the big event, a trip to the village healer. You hate going. Not because she's unpleasant, she's actually very kind, but because she collects teeth in a jar and names them. You're not sure if it's meant to be comforting or threatening. You shuffle down the muddy lane, head wrapped in a scarf, jaw held slightly to one side like it might fall off otherwise. Chickens part in your path with slow disdain. A duck follows you briefly, just to see where the drama's going. The healer lives at the edge of the woods, in a hut that leans slightly toward the sun, as if trying to eavesdrop on its own chimney. She welcomes you with a nod and offers you a stool carved from an old tree stump. It creaks ominously beneath you, but doesn't break. Yet, she examines your face, asks questions, pokes gently, then not so gently. You wince. She nods with satisfaction. She rummages through her shelves and comes back with a waxed cloth bundle. Inside, cloves, salt, dried mint, and a tiny vial of what she calls tooth oil. You don't ask. You apply. It burns like betrayal. She gives you a boiled root to chew on and instructs you to bite it during full moons while facing north. You agree immediately. You'd agree to anything. Your left eyelid is twitching. Historical fact of the hour. Some medieval toothache remedies included pressing herbs into the ear on the same side as the pain. Others favored reciting specific prayers or using toothworms as a diagnosis. Tiny, invisible creatures believed to eat your teeth from the inside. Oddly enough, some remedies helped not because of their logic, but because cloves and certain herbs contain actual numbing compounds. You shuffle home again, half numb and half drenched from a sudden drizzle. A horse sneezes on you in passing. You accept this. It is the day's gift. Back inside, you sit by the fire and make a soft mash of peas, garlic, and barley. You chew on the right side only. The left is still under siege. Someone knocks. It's your neighbor, holding a piece of bark carved with a sun symbol. She says it wards off decay. You nod solemnly and hang it beside the door just above your string of chicken bones. You never say no to new magic, especially dental magic. Later, you recline on the straw tick again. The roof creaks. The wind sighs. Your jaw has settled into something like a truce, and for the first time in 3 nights, you fall asleep without clenching your teeth. Much. Morning returns with the elegance of a falling bucket. You open one eye, then the other. There's a spider dangling above your face, swaying gently, like it's been rehearsing its entrance. You blow at it, and it retreats with offended dignity. Your mouth feels dull, not healed exactly, but at least less dramatic. The pain has faded to a low grumble, like an old man muttering about taxes in the corner of your skull. You'll take it. You sit up, stretch carefully, and peer out the crooked wooden shutter. The sky is the color of dishwater again, and the crows are already discussing someone's fate. They sound judgmental. They usually do. It's market day, which means walking, bartering, and pretending to care about root vegetables, while secretly hoping someone has apples. You dress in your good tunic, which is just your regular tunic, but turned inside out to hide the wax stain, and stuff a few dried beans into your pocket for trade. Your jaw still feels tender, so you skip the chewy breakfast and opt for a soft porridge that has the flavor profile of damp hope. You chew slowly, cautiously, like someone who's been betrayed before. You tie your cloak, grab your basket, and set out toward the village green. The path is wet and lumpy, and every other step is an adventure in balance. Your feet are already damp. You're not surprised. At the edge of the green, stalls are unfolding like sleepy insects. Traders, local farmers, the occasional traveling peddler with suspiciously shiny teeth. They're all here, hawking their wares, with the same mixture of boredom and desperation. You browse. Turnips, onions, a woman selling goose feathers who claims they cure melancholy if you sleep with them under your left arm. You nod politely and move on. At the spice cart, you eye the dried clove pile with longing. You barter 2 buttons and a song for a tiny bundle. The merchant looks satisfied, which makes you think you overpaid. You chew a clove experimentally. The burn is immediate, but familiar, like licking a spiced candle. Still, it works. You feel a little more manageable. A man next to you is selling wooden combs and teeth cleaning twigs. You ask if the twigs are willow. He nods, then quietly says they were soaked in vinegar and rosemary. You buy 3 and feel weirdly proud of yourself. Historical fact of the hour: vinegar and rosemary were common household items believed to fight infection and bad breath. Some peasants even soaked their toothpicks or chewing sticks in this mix to draw out the rot, although no one quite agreed where the rot began or ended. A child runs past you, laughing, mouth full of something red and suspiciously sticky. He trips. Something flies out of his mouth. A tooth. He picks it up like it's treasure and keeps running. You admire the commitment. You trade for some apples. Small, slightly bruised but fragrant. A good find. They'll be soft enough to eat. Back home, you sit on your stool, unpacking your modest haul. Cloves, apples, 3 twigs, 1 suspicious feather. You're not sure how it got there. Your neighbor stops by. She heard you went to the healer. She offers sympathy in the form of a lukewarm poultice and a story about her cousin's tooth falling out during a sermon. You both laugh. It's dry, tired laughter. The best kind. You sit by the hearth and polish one of the new twigs. You chew one end slowly until it splits. Then gently, methodically, you run it along your teeth. It doesn't hurt. It's even, in its own way, satisfying. You feel strangely in control. You go to bed that night with a clean mouth and a new superstition involving goose feathers and rosemary bundles tied with red string. You're not sure if it'll help, but you place one by the window anyway, just in case. You fall asleep thinking about apples, warm fires, and the ridiculous rumor that a man in the next village never had a toothache because he kissed his cow good night. Scholars still debate whether that was superstition, affection, or simply very bad decision-making. The next morning arrives quieter than usual. No crows, no shouting, just the occasional soft creak of the roof beams and a far-off rooster with timing issues. You stretch. You yawn. You listen to the silence like it might tell you something. Your mouth feels, dare you say it, almost normal. The soreness has faded, and even your gums seem less irritated. You don't trust it, but you appreciate it. You get up slowly, wash your face in the basin, watching the ripples dance. You even smile at your reflection in the water, though it wobbles like it's unsure whether to smile back. You eat an apple, not mashed, not cooked, just bitten straight. It crunches. Your eyes water slightly, but it's worth it. Later, you take your time, walking the perimeter of your little world, past the orchard, past the path where the moss always grows in perfect circles. No one knows why. Past the stump that everyone swears is haunted, though really, it just looks like a grumpy potato. You visit the stream again, the same place where you did laundry days ago. You rinse your hands. You pause. You take out your willow twig and give your teeth a gentle once-over. Another villager sees you and nods approvingly. She pulls a sprig of mint from her pouch and pops it in her mouth. a silent agreement. We're trying. You sit on the bank, watch the water, and notice the small things. The way the light filters through leaf and fog, the rhythm of birdsong over distant hammering, the slow drift of a feather in the current. Historical fact of the hour. Medieval peasants understood hygiene better than they're given credit for. Bathing might not have been daily, but mouth cleaning, hair grooming, and hand washing before meals were regular practices, especially in regions where monastic influence lingered. Monks kept herbs, wrote instructions, and quietly judged everyone. You remember a chant the healer taught you? A quiet rhyme meant to soothe the nerves and distract from pain. You murmur it under your breath as you walk home, not because you believe it works, necessarily, but because it's nice to have something to say to the wind. In the village square, someone's posted a drawing, a crude, slightly terrifying sketch of a smiling man with radiant teeth. Beneath it, a message in charcoal. Tooth charms, 2 eggs, or 1 comb. You admire the ambition. At home, you light the fire. Brew a weak tea with dried chamomile and 1 hopeful clove. You sip slowly. It tastes like sleep, which is exactly what you were hoping for. The dog curls at your feet. A chicken watches you through the open doorway. You don't question it anymore. You sit in the amber glow and pick up your new birchwood comb. Not for your teeth, obviously, but as a reminder of effort, of simplicity, of tiny victories. You made it through the worst of the tooth saga, probably, but you still hang the rosemary sachet over your bed, just in case. You wake before the sun again. This time, not from pain, but from the quiet. That particular kind of deep, velvety silence that feels like the world holding its breath. You lie there a moment, staring at the thatch above your head, watching a lazy spider tiptoe between beams like it has very important errands. Your jaw feels, well, functional. It's not asking for revenge. That alone feels like a minor miracle. You sit up and light the hearth with the practiced flick of flint against steel. The fire takes its time, grumbling into existence, like an old man waking from a nap. You wrap yourself in your wool cloak and make a small breakfast, leftover mash, a bit of milk, and luxury of luxuries, a whole apple, only slightly bruised. You chew carefully, but you don't wince. The clove seems to have worked, and your jaw no longer sounds like a creaky door when you move it. Outside, the village is waking in stages. A rooster declares war on the sky. Someone starts hammering something badly. A baby cries in the distance. Life continues. You decide to take a longer walk today. Your feet know the way before you even pick a direction. The path curves toward the fields, where green shoots poke stubbornly through the late spring mud. The soil smells like the inside of the earth's pocket, rich, warm, and vaguely sour. As you walk, you run into Osric, tall, quiet, and shaped like a sack of oats. He's gnawing on a fennel stalk, claims it helps his breath. You nod solemnly and pretend you weren't going to ask why his teeth look like weathered ivory chess pieces. Together, you walk toward the monastery, just outside the village. They've got bees, herbs, and, if rumor is true, parchments written by people with an alarming obsession with oral hygiene. A monk greets you at the gate. He doesn't smile, but then again, no one with that many visible teeth ever does without making a statement. He leads you to the garden, where rows of mint, sage, fennel, and lavender grow like little leafy prayers. The air smells sharp and clean, almost civilized. You kneel near the mint patch and ask permission to take a few sprigs. The monk nods and quotes something in Latin that might be a blessing or might be a recipe for soup. Hard to say. Historical fact of the hour. Monasteries were the main hubs for early medical knowledge, and monks often recorded recipes for mouthwashes made from wine, vinegar, mint, and even boiled urine. Yes, urine. Allegedly, it restored balance. Scholarly consensus is mixed on whether this was effective or just a very unfortunate experiment. You chew a leaf of mint and wince as your tongue forgets it isn't chewing a twig. Osric smiles, in sympathy, revealing a gap you hadn't noticed before. He says it's a badge of wisdom. You decide not to point out that goats also have gaps, and no one asks their opinion. You thank the monk and make your way back home. The path warm beneath your soles. You feel better. Not healed, not whole, but better. Like the kind of better you only notice because you remember what worse felt like. Back in your cottage, you hang the mint sprigs by the window. The light touches them like a compliment. You grind a few into a paste with salt and charcoal, rubbing it between your fingers. You'll try that tomorrow, perhaps. It smells oddly familiar, like effort and possibility. The dog watches you from the hearth, tail thumping once, then going still. Outside, the wind shifts. Not colder, not warmer, just different. You sit by the fire and sip warm water, flavored faintly with apple peel and a sliver of clove. You lean back against the wall, breathing slow. Your mouth is quiet. Your thoughts are soft. You think, maybe, you'll survive this century after all. The next day brings rain, not the dramatic kind, just the sort of rain that drizzles endlessly, soaking everything with the persistence of a bored ant giving unsolicited advice. You listen to it patter against the roof as you pull your cloak tighter and peer out the door. The path is already mud. The chickens look personally offended. You nod to them and shut the door again. You spend the morning indoors. There's soup to stir, socks to mend, and a new chew twig to test. This one's elderwood, gifted by a traveler who swore it would make your breath as fresh as a holy day. You don't know what that means, but it smells slightly peppery and doesn't splinter, so you consider it a win. You chew slowly, working the fibers soft, with careful bites. Your teeth still feel tender in places, like shy neighbors, not ready to be seen. But the pain is gone. You rub the end of the twig with a dash of mint and a bit of salt, massaging it gently along your teeth. The effect is subtle, but soothing. You imagine your teeth smiling quietly in approval. If teeth could smile without involving a mirror and some unsettling implications outside, the village is unusually still. Rain has a way of settling people. No shouting, no clanging, just the soft background music of domestic survival. You take the opportunity to clean your comb and oil your teeth sticks. It's a ritual now, this new care. Not just because of pain, but because it gives your hands something to do and your thoughts somewhere to rest. Historical fact of the hour. In certain parts of 15th century Europe, dental hygiene was seen not just as physical upkeep, but as moral discipline. A clean mouth suggested a clean soul. People would even chew angelica root or myrrh on holy days to freshen their breath before church. Fearing that bad breath might insult the divine, you try to imagine God flinching politely at someone's halitosis and can't help but chuckle. You spend the afternoon tending to your herbs, lavender, sage, and a new pot of marjoram you're trying to coax into surviving. The air smells faintly floral, smoky, and damp. It's nice, like living inside someone's memory of a warm summer. A neighbor stops by with a bundle of thyme and an interesting rumor. A woman 3 villages over swears she grew new teeth by sleeping with a clove under her tongue and reciting psalms backward. You raise an eyebrow. She shrugs. Worth trying, she says. You both laugh. But she hands you a clove anyway. Later that night, you tuck it under your tongue, just to see. The rain continues. Outside, gentle and insistent. It drips off the eaves, pools in the stone basin outside, and gathers on the windows in sleepy rivulets. You lie back in your straw bed, wrapped in wool, and listening to the steady drumbeat of water. The room smells like mint and firewood. Your body feels tired in the right places, and for once, your mouth is silent, not because it has nothing to say, but because it finally doesn't need to say it through pain. You close your eyes, tasting the faint burn of clove and the echo of time. Sleep comes in slowly, like a friend who knows where everything belongs. You wake to birdsong, not the chaotic screeching you usually hear, the feathered squabble over breadcrumbs and worms, but an actual melody, a quiet trill, almost polite. It takes you a moment to realize it's coming from the edge of your windowsill, where a small brown bird sits as if auditioning for a better season. Your jaw feels fine, suspiciously fine. No soreness, no dull ache, just the simple, forgotten sensation of neutrality. You run your tongue along your teeth, cautiously. Everything is still there, still chipped and uneven, but calm. You sit up slowly, like you're worried the pain is hiding around a corner, waiting to yell boo. The clove you tucked under your tongue last night is gone, dissolved, or swallowed, or perhaps spirited away by the tooth saints. You decide not to think too hard about it. The day is bright but cold. Sunlight slips through the shutter slats like it's been charged by the hour. You gather your things with quiet focus. Cloak, boots, a fresh stick for cleaning. You've decided to walk again today, not out of duty, but out of curiosity. There's something hopeful in the weather, and your body seems to agree. You pass the healer's hut, nod politely to the chickens pecking around her doorstep, and continue along the wooded path that curves toward the hill. Today's destination is a spring, the one said to have restorative properties, though mostly it's just clean and cold, and makes your knees hurt when you kneel beside it. Still, villagers swear by it. You like the quiet there, the way the water speaks softly against the rocks. You reach the spring, crouch beside it, and dip your fingers in. It bites at your skin, pure, cold, ancient. You take a small sip and rinse your mouth. Then, almost without thinking, you reach for your cleaning twig and begin brushing right there, knees in the moss, sunlight flickering through the trees. Historical fact of the hour: springs and wells were often associated with healing in medieval Europe, not just physically, but spiritually. Some were considered sacred, tied to saints or spirits. People would rinse wounds, drink for strength, or even leave offerings like teeth, hair, and tiny tokens to ensure continued health. You look around. There's a pile of stones near the base of the spring, with bits of cloth and twine tied to the bushes. Someone else has been here. Someone else believes. You spit delicately into the grass, like a noble, a slightly soggy noble. Your teeth feel cleaner. Not polished, not perfect, but undeniably cleaner. You sit on a nearby log and let the sun warm your cheeks. Then you spot it. A carved charm tucked in the crook of a tree. A small wooden tooth strung with flax and something pale, perhaps a dried flower. You don't touch it, but you nod at it, as one believer to another. On the walk back, you chew a bit of mint, not because you need it, but because it tastes like routine, like comfort. The path winds past a stone wall built by someone with more ambition than skill. A goat balances on it with an air of smug danger. You return home and sweep your floor. You tidy your herb shelf. You wash your hands in warm water and dry them on cloth that still smells faintly of rosemary. At dusk, a child from next door runs in, wiggling a loose tooth proudly. She's tied a bit of string to it and says if it comes out tonight, she'll throw it in the fire and whisper her wish. You blink. You didn't know people still did that. She grins and says her grandmother told her it keeps future teeth strong. Scholars still debate whether this ritual had symbolic meaning or was simply a way to dispose of small biological hazards without inviting vermin. You give her a pinch of mint and send her off, wishing her and her molars well. That night, you eat a stew with actual chewing, cabbage, onion, barley, solid, honest food. You chew slow, but sure. Nothing hurts. And when you crawl into bed, the air cool and lavender scented from the bundle you keep under your pillow, you smile. Crooked, yes, but without pain. You sleep deeply. You dream of spring water, mint fields, and a quiet voice saying, "Now rinse and spit." It's a market morning again, but this one feels lighter somehow. Your steps are less cautious, your breath warmer in the crisp air, your jaw unbothered by cold or chatter. You pack your things with quiet efficiency. Coins, or what pass for coins, 2 small bundles of dried herbs, and 3 carved sticks of birchwood. Your newest creation. You've begun trading them, not for money, necessarily, but for small comforts. A few eggs, a patch of wool, a story. The path is soft with dew, and mist curls along the hedgerows, like it's trying to avoid attention. You nod to it, like an old friend. Somewhere in the distance, someone's singing, off-key but committed. At the market square, the energy is gentle. No one's shouting today. People mill about with the kind of slow motion that only arrives after a night of solid sleep. You breathe in deeply, baking bread, muddy boots, and a faint hint of goats. The medieval perfume. You set up your modest tray near the cloth merchant, who gives you a nod and a raisin. You return the favor with a smile and a stick of birch, which she sniffs, chews, and declares slightly lemony. You make a mental note. Throughout the morning, a handful of villagers stop by. One man trades you a pinch of ground chalk for 3 twigs. A boy offers a wooden marble. A young woman hesitates, then hands you a sprig of something green and bitter. Whorehound. For teeth, she says. You nod. You know. Historical fact of the hour. Whorehound, along with sage, myrrh, and sometimes even pepper, was used in medieval tooth powders. People would dry the herbs, grind them to dust, and rub them directly on teeth and gums. It may not have sparkled, but it probably helped more than doing nothing. You chat, you listen, you learn that someone in the next village is selling tooth blessings, which turn out to be nothing more than prayers whispered into a cup of cider. Honestly, it sounds soothing either way. The cobbler passes by and shows you his newest trick, rubbing his gums with nettle leaves soaked in cold water. Keeps them firm, he says, despite the fact that his lips look slightly offended by the whole ordeal. You sell him 2 twigs and recommend he add mint. Back home, you tuck your small earnings into a pouch. Your fingers are stained faintly from bark and ash, and it feels good, like proof of care. You clean your teeth again that evening, gently, slowly, thoughtfully. A bit of charcoal, a bit of salt, a hint of whorehound. You hum while you do it. A low tune, nothing special. Afterwards, you sit by the hearth, sipping warm cider and pressing your tongue against your clean teeth, like you're checking if they're still yours. They are, more than ever. You glance toward your herb shelf. It's full now. Mint, sage, rosemary, lavender. Not much, but enough. As the fire crackles and the day winds down into its last soft thoughts, you realize you're not just surviving this toothache anymore. You're tending something, preserving something, maybe even smiling, just a little, in the dark. By now, cleaning your teeth has become part of the rhythm of the day. Right after tending the fire, before scolding the hens, it slots in naturally, like combing your hair or adjusting the crooked nail that holds up your only pan. You wake before sunrise again. There's a charm in it now. The world is quieter, like a secret you're allowed to keep for an hour or 2. The air smells of damp earth and wood smoke, and your hands find the warm cup of leftover cider from last night without thinking. A soft sip, a deep breath, then the twig. Today's tool is ashwood, smooth, pale, with a smell like someone else's fireplace. You've soaked it in mint water overnight, and it chews down easily between your molars, splitting into a tidy little brush on one end. You sit on the doorstep, wrapped in your cloak, brushing gently while the village shakes off sleep. A dog barks distantly. Someone's goat has escaped again. You make a mental note not to volunteer help this time. That goat remembers grudges. You rinse with rainwater collected in your basin, cold enough to wake a bishop. Then spit discreetly into the grass and wipe your mouth with your sleeve. Like the high-born person, you absolutely aren't. Your gums feel good, slightly pink, slightly numb from the mint, but alive. Today, you're meant to help gather firewood, which, in this village, means dragging wet branches out of the woods while pretending your back isn't about to betray you. You join the others at the tree line, where the ground is soft and spongy from the last rainfall. Someone sneezes dramatically and blames the forest spirits. Someone else mutters that sneezing clears tooth rot if done with intention. You raise an eyebrow. The speaker nods solemnly. Historical fact of the hour: sneezing was, at various times, believed to expel demons, unblock bodily humors, and even protect against certain illnesses. There are records of peasants believing that a strong sneeze could rattle loose bad energies in the head, including tooth ghosts. No, really, you drag a thick branch free of the brambles. It smells faintly of mushrooms. Behind you, someone starts a story about their uncle who could bite through walnut shells before breakfast and never lost a tooth. You suspect this is folklore, but you enjoy it anyway. After the firewood is stacked and your cloak smells satisfyingly of effort, you walk home slowly, chewing the same twig from earlier. The taste has mellowed. Your teeth feel pleasantly scrubbed, not polished, but attended to. You sit in the doorway again, this time with a bowl of warm root mash and a slice of boiled apple. You eat with slow pleasure, no twinges, no sharp shocks, just the quiet satisfaction of function. Later, a young boy stops by your door holding a tooth in his hand. He grins, a gap-toothed, triumphant sort of grin, and asks if you have any spicy twigs. You give him one soaked in clove oil and tell him to chew it slow. He thanks you like you've given him a sword. You're becoming the tooth person. Apparently, you're not even mad about it. That night, you clean your teeth again by candlelight. You hum the same quiet tune. You finish with a warm rinse of salted mint water and sit by the fire with a feeling that is dangerously close to pride. Your teeth aren't perfect, but they're yours, and they're still here. You fall asleep with the faintest smile, which no one sees, but that's not the point. The next morning, something unusual happens. You bite into a pear, not a boiled pear, not a mashed pear, a fresh, raw, slightly too firm pear, handed to you by the cloth merchant's niece, who claimed it was from a tree that hadn't bloomed in 4 years. You thank her cautiously and bring it home. And then, without ceremony, you take a bite. It crunches, it bursts, it stings a little, but not from pain, just from cold juice against morning gums. You stand in your doorway, chewing slowly, like a person from a fancier painting. For once, you don't wince. Your jaw moves without complaint. Your gums are tender, yes, but peaceful. The flavor tastes like green and risk and sugar, and you swallow like you've earned it. Afterwards, you rinse with warm sage water, swish thoroughly, and spit into the grass with the flair of a tavern minstrel. The day is yours. You spend the morning boiling herbs into pastes and sorting your collection of twigs. You've begun drying them by the fire, stacked neatly on a small shelf you made yourself from leftover kindling. Each is labeled in charcoal: mint, clove, ash, vinegar, and your newest experiment, marjoram and regret. That one smells powerful. Someone stops by midday to barter. He's missing several teeth and carrying a jar of snail shells. He swears they keep jaw demons at bay when boiled and buried under the threshold. You don't trade, but you listen to the story. Historical fact of the hour: snail shells, frog bones, and even badger fat were used in various medieval folk remedies for toothaches. While largely ineffective, they reflect the broader worldview that nature held all cures if you only used the right combination and faced east while chanting. You decide not to try the snails, but you do light a bit of dried lavender and rosemary and let the smoke curl through your cottage. It smells like clean dreams. By afternoon, you're mixing a new batch of powder: sage, ground salt, and a pinch of crushed chalk. You test it with your softest twig, brushing gently, methodically, humming all the while. The paste tingles faintly. Your tongue approves. Your cousin visits, sees your setup, and raises an eyebrow. You treating your teeth like royalty now? He asks. You nod. You've earned it. That night, you do a full ritual. Brush, rinse, mint chew, candlelight, silence. You lie down, hands folded, teeth gently tingling, the faintest flavor of sage still lingering on your tongue. Outside, the wind is quiet, even. It respects your efforts. You fall asleep thinking, maybe next week you'll try to teach someone else. Maybe this morning your cottage smells like a mix of mint, firewood, and very old wool. It's oddly comforting. You sit up, stretch, and roll your shoulders like someone who knows the weather, through bone alone. No pain, no creaking from your jaw, just a peaceful stiffness in the knees, and a cloak sliding to the floor like it's decided it, too, has earned a rest. You wander to the basin and splash cold water on your face. It bites. You welcome it. You reach automatically for a twig. Today, it's hawthorn, shaved down last night, while listening to a neighbor's story about a pig that predicted harvests. You still don't know if the pig was right, but the story was worth it. You chew the twig's end until it frays. Dab it into your new herb powder, which now includes a whisper of thyme, and begin brushing gently. There's a strange sense of peace in the ritual now. The movement, the soft crackle of bristles, the faint bitterness, followed by the bright sting of salt. You rinse with warm water, spit into the hearth ashes, and sit back with your hands on your knees. Your teeth feel clean. You feel awake. Outside, the village is buzzing. It's the feast of St. Mildred, patron of sore joints and cracked bread. There's talk of boiled wheat cakes and a visit from a man who claims to be able to identify sin just by smelling someone's breath. You've met weirder people. You put on your best tunic, which is only slightly less patched than your regular one, and step outside. Children run past with flower garlands and half-burned bits of old incense. You smile. It's a good day for observing. You pass the healer's hut. She set up a small table outside with little packets of herbs, pots of salve, and one mysterious jar labeled tooth charm powder. Use with whisper. You don't ask what it means. You buy it anyway. Historical fact of the hour. Saint Apollonia, a 3rd century Christian martyr, became the patron saint of toothaches. In medieval villages, people would call on her during times of dental pain, sometimes whispering her name over water before rinsing, sometimes pressing her image to the cheek. Devotion and superstition danced closely together. Back at the green, the smell of barley stew fills the air. You eat a soft wedge of honey bread and chew easily, comfortably. Someone plays a harp that's missing 3 strings, and honestly, no one minds. You spend part of the afternoon helping a young boy make his first chew twig. You show him how to whittle the bark down, how to soak it overnight, how to twist the fibers into a little fan. He names it Tooth Sword. You approve. Later, you sit by the well with 3 other villagers. You pass around a pouch of mint sprigs, and everyone chews in silence for a while. It feels like communion, like you're all in on something important, even if no one says it. You return home at dusk, tired, full, smiling. You light a candle, brush your teeth one more time for the day, and whisper Saint Apollonia's name, just because. Sleep comes easily, cradled by music and mint. There's fog this morning, the thick, silver kind that wraps the village in quiet and makes every sound feel secret. You pull on your cloak and step outside, breath puffing into the air. The grass is wet beneath your boots. A cat slinks past, trailing mist from its tail, like a wizard on an errand. You walk slowly toward the edge of the woods. No errands, no chores, just the need to move and think and maybe gather some sage if the grove is still offering. The world is soft out here. Trees rise out of the mist like patient giants. Birds call gently, as if remembering their indoor voices. You find the sage patch, kneel in the dew, and snip a few sprigs with care. You chew one, just to test its edge. Bitter, bold, cleansing. You pocket the herbs and walk back the long way, past the crumbled stone where someone once carved a sun with teeth. No one knows who did it or why. Local children say it's the guardian of smiles. You let the story stand. Back at your cottage, you set the herbs to dry on a small linen square near the fire. You grind the last of yesterday's paste, adding a pinch of the mystery powder from the healer. The smell is sharp, like vinegar and hope. You prepare your twig, brush gently, and hum a tune that surfaced from nowhere, possibly from childhood, possibly just borrowed from the wind. Then, something strange. Your tooth, the one in the back, that always felt a little too sharp, feels smooth, worn down in a way that's not damage, just adaptation. You test it with your tongue and smile. You're winning. Historical fact of the hour. Archaeologists have found signs that some medieval individuals shaped their teeth, grinding them down to even edges, using abrasives like chalk or rough cloth. Whether for health or appearance, it reveals a surprising awareness of oral maintenance, even without mirrors or dentists. You feel oddly connected to those long-gone grinders. You raise your cup of sage water to them. A neighbor stops by with a basket of hard biscuits and says you can have 3 if you can eat one without wincing. You accept the challenge. You pass. She leaves impressed. You pretend not to gloat. Evening falls gently. You sit outside under a thick blanket, watching the fog pull back into the trees like a retreating curtain. Your teeth are clean. Your breath smells faintly of mint. Your jaw rests easy. You whisper Saint Apollonia's name again, not as a plea, but as a thank you, just in case she's listening. You fall asleep feeling very medieval and very modern all at once. The wind changes today. You feel it before you see it, cooler, sharper, curling through the thatch and setting the herbs above your hearth swaying like dancers with secrets. You pull your wool cloak tighter and step outside, where the sky is already shifting toward pewter. Someone down the lane mutters that winter's teeth are sharpening. Someone else sneezes and takes it as a sign. You shrug and start boiling water anyway. You've been using the same 3 twigs all week, a rotation system like socks, but for chewing. Today, you try one soaked in cider vinegar and sage. It smells faintly like a headache, but works wonders on the tongue. You chew until the fibers bloom, then brush methodically, watching steam rise from your cup as you work. You've grown so used to the taste of herbs and salt that anything sweet now tastes like scandal. You finish with a rinse of warm thyme water and a little spit into the fire, which hisses in appreciation. After breakfast, stew again, softer than it needs to be, because you're now slightly afraid of overconfidence. You join a group heading toward the orchard, some pruning to do, some gossip to catch. You walk alongside Alric, who's lost 5 teeth, but still eats nuts like they owe him money. He tells you a story about a wandering friar who claimed licorice root could keep your mouth holy. You raise an eyebrow. Alric nods sagely, holy like a sieve. He adds, historical fact of the hour. Licorice root was chewed in various medieval regions, not just for breath, but for supposed spiritual purity. It was believed to calm the stomach, cleanse the breath, and when chewed properly, drive out wickedness through the gums. Whether it worked is questionable, but it was certainly flavorful. You find a fallen branch in the orchard, birch, freshly snapped. You break off a section, whittle it smooth, and tuck it into your pouch. Tomorrow's brush. You're getting good at this. By midday, you're back home, boiling water, and trying your hand at making tooth powder, the way the healer described. Chalk dust, crushed fennel, dried mint, and, because you can't resist, just a hint of sage ash. You mix it slowly, carefully, and store it in a tiny clay pot with a cork that once stopped a bottle of something unholy. Later, you test it. It's bitter, it's strong, it works. Your tongue dances over your teeth and finds them, still here, still smooth, still surviving. A visitor arrives before dusk. An old woman with one good eye and a bundle of something wrapped in cloth. She offers you a recipe for tooth-strengthening tea in exchange for a twig and a pinch of your powder. You agree instantly. The barter feels sacred. She unwraps her bundle slowly, reverently. Inside, dried dandelion root, a sliver of licorice, and a bundle of strange-looking moss. Boil it on the full moon, she says. Don't ask why. You don't. You thank her. She leaves with a smile, missing half its parts, but somehow warmer than most whole ones. That night, you sit by the fire, brush your teeth with your new paste, rinse with warm clove water, and sip the strange moss tea. It tastes like dirt and ambition. You sleep with a faint tingle on your tongue, and the satisfaction of knowing your mouth is becoming legend. This morning begins with a knock, not a gentle one, more like someone's fist, trying to explain urgency through wood. You untangle yourself from your blanket open the door and find the baker's boy, red-cheeked and breathless, holding a rag-wrapped bundle. "She's screaming," he says. "Woke the hens. It's a tooth." You sigh, grab your pouch of powders and twigs, and follow him through mud that squelches with the sincerity of a bad omen. The patient is the baker's sister, young, wide-eyed, and clutching her jaw like it's trying to escape. You kneel beside her, ask a few questions, and inspect the swelling. The offending tooth is clearly visible. A molar, red-rimmed and pulsing with resentment. You apply a clove, poultice, wrapped in linen, and instruct her to bite down slowly. She does. The silence that follows is punctuated by cautious breathing and the occasional sigh. You leave her with a sprig of mint and a promise that the worst will pass. You also leave her brother with a lecture about the importance of sage rinses and daily brushing. Back home, you sit with a bowl of warm barley and ponder what just happened. You're the tooth person now. Officially, you brush more thoughtfully today, not just for yourself, but to practice what you preach. Your birch twig is smooth, and your newest powder has a soft, smoky flavor. You spit into the fire and nod as the steam hisses. Historical fact of the hour. It wasn't uncommon for individuals in medieval villages to take on unofficial roles: bone setters, wart whisperers, and yes, tooth workers. These people weren't doctors, but they had skill, observation, and repetition, and a little luck when it counted. You write a few things down on scrap parchment: mixtures, combinations, what worked, what didn't. Your handwriting is terrible. Your system is worse. But it's something. That afternoon, a girl you don't recognize knocks at your door. She's got a twig in her hand and a hopeful expression. You smile and invite her in. By evening, you've shown her how to make paste, how to check for soft spots, how to hold the twig like a brush and not a weapon. You're not trying to start a movement, but maybe, just maybe, you're building something useful. That night, you chew fennel, rinse with thyme water, and drift into sleep, wondering if anyone will remember the tooth person with the cleanest smile in the village. You kind of hope they do. The morning is warm. Strangely so. A thick breeze rolls in early, shaking the window shutter like it has something to say. You listen to it while you press warm cloth to your face. Not from pain, not anymore, just as a kindness, like saying thank you to your own jaw for showing up. You open the door to find a line. 3 people, 2 holding their cheeks, 1 holding a chicken, for reasons you choose not to ask. They've come for advice. You motion them inside, suddenly aware that your cottage smells strongly of vinegar and mint. You hope it reads as herbal apothecary and not confused salad. You hand out twigs, inspect molars, demonstrate rinsing techniques, and even offer a pinch of your latest chalk mint powder. You don't charge anything. Most of them leave behind eggs or dried herbs, or in one case, a feather that they claim is from a saint's goose. You do not question this. After the last visitor leaves, you finally sit down and clean your own teeth. You use the hawthorn twig today. Smaller, a little more flexible. You like how it fits into the crevices, even the stubborn ones. Your fingers move with practiced grace. It's no longer a chore. It's care. You rinse with a mix of vinegar, sage, and rainwater. The sting is brief. Then, peace. That afternoon, a boy appears at your door with a note. It's from the monk at the edge of the village, the one with the cleanest teeth and the fewest facial expressions. He's heard of your practice and wishes to speak. You tuck the note into your belt and make your way to the monastery. The monk meets you in the garden, hands folded, eyes sharp. He doesn't waste time. You clean teeth? I do. With sticks and powders? Yes. He nods slowly, the way monks do when they're not yet sure if they're impressed or disturbed. He leads you to the cloister's library and pulls out a tiny volume, leather-bound, brittle. Inside, drawings of mouths, diagrams of herbs, annotations in Latin so faded they look like polite dust. Historical fact of the hour. Some monastic texts from the 13th and 14th centuries included oral hygiene guidance. Rudimentary, yes, but specific. Rub the teeth with salt and fennel. Rinse with vinegar and warm rainwater. Avoid chewing bones. That last bit took some of the fun out of things. You study the book carefully. You point out that they got the proportions wrong on the molars. The monk blinks slowly. He offers you a page of recipes in exchange for one of your chew sticks and a small bag of powder. You shake hands on it. You're now officially in the monastic dental circuit. You walk home feeling very serious until you trip over a rut in the path and land face first in the grass. You laugh. Eventually, that night, you sit at your work table by firelight and copy the monastic recipes, adjusting the measurements based on what you've learned. Less vinegar, more mint. Always dry the twig at a slant. You brush before bed with your new powder, slightly sweeter than the last. You rinse, stretch, and lie down with a sigh. Somewhere, a saint's goose honks in approval. This morning begins with a letter, a real one, folded, wax sealed, tucked under a stone, outside your door like a shy suitor. The seal is unfamiliar, half moon stamped in green wax. You open it slowly, like it might explode. It doesn't. It's an invitation, a manor 2 villages over. A minor noble wants your opinion on something called a tooth wine. You try not to gag at the phrase. You pack your satchel, twig kit, herb pouch, small pot of your best paste, and an extra tunic just in case someone mistakes you for someone respectable. It smells faintly of nettle and starch. The road is long, but easy. Fields stretch wide, dotted with wildflowers and the occasional sheep, who looks like it knows more than you do. By mid-morning, you arrive. The manor is large, by rural standards. Stone, walls, arched windows, and a kitchen that probably owns more than one pan. You are offered bread, cheese, and a seat on a bench with actual padding. You meet the noble, a man with perfect hair, suspicious breath, and a nervous habit of clicking his teeth. He offers you a goblet of tooth wine brewed with rosemary, vinegar, and something sweet he won't name. You sip cautiously. It tastes like regret wearing perfume. You gently suggest that mint might improve it. He insists on showing you his collection of imported toothpicks, bone, ivory, even one tipped in silver. They're beautiful, completely useless. You explain how chewing twigs actually works. Demonstrate your brushing technique and leave him speechless. He writes it all down. You notice he holds the quill like a chicken trying to dance. Historical fact of the hour. Wealthy medieval people often owned ornate toothpicks, some gold, some carved from coral, not always for function, but as status symbols. They were shown off at feasts and hung from belts like dental jewelry. Meanwhile, peasants kept things simple and chewed twigs. You offer him a clove-soaked twig wrapped in linen. He holds it like it might bite him. He pays you in coins and an awkward smile. You leave feeling richer, but also oddly validated. Back in your village by sundown, you sit by the hearth, unwrap your own humble twig, and brush slowly, gratefully. Fancy. Tools are fine, but sometimes it's the simple things that actually keep your mouth in one piece. You spit into the fire with reverence. The flame hisses. You smile into the dark smiles back. You don't mean to start a school. It just happens. One morning, you open your door and find 3 children waiting with twigs. One has already chewed his into something resembling a squirrel tail. Another has dipped hers in what smells like soup. The third looks unsure why she's here at all, but holds a sprig of fennel like it might hatch. You invite them in, lay out your cloth, and begin. They watch carefully as you demonstrate, whittling, soaking, chewing, brushing. They ask questions. You answer most. The others you make up answers for, but in a responsible, herbalist sort of way. You send them home with practice twigs and a firm reminder to rinse with warm water, not cider. The one with the soup stick promises to do better. You believe her, mostly. That afternoon, a widow stops by with her niece and a batch of soft cheese. She says the girl's breath could knock over a sow. You nod solemnly. You've met the sow. You guide the girl through a rinse and brush routine. She leaves with a sweet-smelling mouth and a look of quiet wonder. By the end of the week, 7 people have visited your home, some for help, some for supplies. One just wanted to know if molars could predict the weather. You said only on feast days. And so it goes, day after day. You teach, you mix, you make. You have become something you didn't expect. Trusted. You keep a new ledger now. Small, leather-bound, hand-me-down, from a cousin who tried bookkeeping for pigs. Long story. In it, you jot combinations. Vinegar, sage, and mint. Sharp, good for cold mornings. Ash, chalk and fennel, strong cleaner. Slightly bitter. Elder root. Too spicy? Use sparingly. Clove oil. A miracle and possibly illegal. You laugh to yourself as you write. You're not a scholar. You're not a healer. You're just someone who got tired of aching. Historical fact of the hour. Peasant knowledge often passed through memory, trial, and shared effort. Folk doctors might be midwives, shepherds, or even smiths. Anyone with a reputation for knowing something useful. Oral hygiene wasn't isolated. It was part of a larger rhythm of survival, passed by word and demonstration. That night, you sit on your stool, brush your teeth with a hawthorn twig dipped in your latest powder, and feel something akin to legacy. You're not changing the world. You're just making it a little less painful, one mouth at a time. And that's enough. The weather turns today. Sharply, winds rise at dawn, slamming shutters and howling through chimneys like they've just remembered their purpose. The sky turns the color of boiled stone, and the trees lean like they'd rather not be involved. You stay inside. Everyone does. Even the chickens are unusually quiet, huddled under the eaves, with their feathers puffed like startled pillows. You spend the morning organizing your supplies, twigs by type, powders by purpose, rinses by intensity, ranging from gentle encouragement to cleansing wrath of God. You take inventory. 11 twigs, 4 clove sprigs, half a pouch of sage, a nearly empty jar of vinegar, several jars with illegible labels, possibly teeth-related, possibly jam. As the wind rages, you light a small fire, hang herbs to dry from the rafters, and begin boiling a new rinse. Apple vinegar, dried mint, and just a hint of yarrow. It smells like a clean orchard, and a very polite warning. A knock comes around noon. It's the shepherd, holding a cloth to his cheek and grimacing like he's been biting fence posts. You let him in. He paces while you prepare a poultice, muttering something about tooth ghosts and winter curses. You nod sympathetically. You brew him a rinse. He gurgles, coughs, declares it violently effective. You beam with pride. You pack him a bundle, clove salve, a mint twig, a string of fennel. He leaves smiling out of one side of his face. You write it all down. Historical fact of the hour. In several parts of Europe, people believed in tooth spirits, invisible beings that entered through the mouth during certain weather. Remedies often included herbal smoke, whispered chants, or tying strings around fingers to trap the ache. The rituals varied wildly, but many involved peppermint, fire, and patience. As evening falls, the wind dies. Your cottage is still. The hearth glows like a secret. The herbs sway gently, as if remembering a song. You chew a bit of fennel, brush carefully, rinse with your orchard blend. You sleep soundly, blanketed in quiet, and the satisfaction of having done something useful. Outside, the wind gives one last sigh and disappears. Inside, your mouth tastes like mint and small victories. This morning, the village wakes up slower than usual. Maybe it's the leftover hush from yesterday's storm. Maybe it's the cold seeping through the thatch. Or maybe everyone just collectively decided to move like molasses for the sake of solidarity. You don't mind. It's nice, actually. This stillness. You let the moment stretch as you warm your hands by the fire and chew the end of a new willow twig. It softens quickly, bends like it understands the job. You've added dried orange peel to your paste today, just a pinch, for brightness. You brush in slow circles, watching the shadows flicker on the wall. Your teeth feel respected. You rinse with warm sage water and spit into the ash bucket with quiet ceremony. Outside, the paths are thick with mud. Chickens pick through puddles like they're insulted by the concept of wet feet. A few neighbors are patching roof tiles, and someone is singing a song about turnips and broken hearts. It's catchy. You walk to the village green, carrying a cloth bundle, fresh twigs, a jar of powder, and a little book of your notes, now dog-eared and smudged. You've been asked to teach another group, this time 5 adults, 1 child, and a goat that refuses to leave its owner's side. You set up under the old ash tree and begin your lesson. Start with the basics. how to chew the twig, how to angle it toward the gum line, how not to poke yourself in the throat with overzealous scrubbing. The child listens with reverence. The goat chews a stick and looks smug. You hand out samples. Everyone spits into the grass like a very sanitary, secret society. One woman asks about pain behind the molars. You suggest a warm clove rinse and a light prayer. Another man shows you a gap where a tooth used to be and asks if he should whistle more or less. You advise moderation in all things, including whistling. Historical fact of the hour. Medieval people believed balance was key, not just in humors, but in behavior. Too much heat, too much cold, even too much laughter was thought to unbalance the body and invite illness. Dental discomfort was often explained as a sign of excess dryness or trapped cold, treated with warm compresses and certain food restrictions. No onions, for instance, during waxing moons. You finish your lesson with a quick demonstration of tongue cleaning using a curled sliver of birch bark. It gets laughs. It also gets results. You return home in the late afternoon with a basket of dried apples and someone's old scarf as thanks. You make tea from the apple peels and sip it slowly, watching the smoke twist in lazy spirals. Your jaw is calm. Your teeth feel smooth. Your breath smells like mint and a little victory. That night, you hum yourself to sleep. Your dreams are full of willow trees and whispered thanks. You wake to frost, just a light dusting, barely there, but enough to turn the grass into a lace of silver and convince the dog to stay curled at the hearth. You don't mind the cold. You're prepared for it now. You pull your wool cloak tighter, wrap your hands around a cup of warm thyme water, and sit on your doorstep, watching the village try to decide if it's awake or not. Your cleaning today is efficient. Hawthorn twig, sage paste, a few slow passes over the molars. You're thinking of experimenting with charcoal again, just a bit, for whitening. Not that you're vain, but you did catch your reflection in a puddle last week and thought, not bad for someone with no mirror. You rinse with salted mint water. The cold sharpens the taste. You spit into the dirt like someone who knows what they're doing. After breakfast, you get a visitor. The carpenter's daughter holding a letter from someone in the next village. The note is messy, but legible. Another request for assistance. Someone's tooth is singing. You pack your kit and begin the walk. 2 villages over, through a stretch of woods that smells like pine and the end of summer. You arrive by noon, greeted by a group of people who clearly expected someone older, or at least taller. You smile, show your twigs, and get to work. The patient is a farmer, broad-shouldered, gentle-eyed, and currently in agony. His left molar looks like it's tried to escape sideways. You offer clove oil, a warm compress, and a few calming words. Then, you clean gently with a soft elder twig, brush with a paste of fennel and ash, and let the pain ease. He falls asleep in the chair. The others watch, whispering like you're a magician or a saint. You correct them, just a villager with sore memories and too many mint plants. Historical fact of the hour. In many rural communities, people sought help from whoever had the most experience, not official training. A good tooth worker might be known across several villages, and walking 2 or 3 miles to see them was considered reasonable. Reputation traveled faster than carts. You teach them how to make their own rinse. Boiled sage, clove, and rainwater, cooled under the moon. You write it down in blocky letters and draw a little picture of a smiling tooth. They pay you in turnips and gratitude. Back home by nightfall, you wash your hands in warm water, sit by the fire, and take out your own brush. You clean slowly, thoughtfully, as if telling your teeth, I haven't forgotten you. You're still the reason this all began. You fall asleep under heavy blankets, smelling of cloves and pine, and dream of smiling faces you don't yet know. This morning, the first snow falls. Not much, just a lazy drift of white across the rooftops, enough to quiet the village and make even the loudest rooster reconsider his volume. You watch it from your window, sipping warm broth from a wooden cup. It steams gently against your fingers, and for a moment, the world feels wrapped in a woolen hush. You chew a dried mint sprig, just to wake up your senses. Then, the usual. Whittle a new birch twig, soften it in warm water, dip it in a fresh batch of sage charcoal powder, and brush while watching the flakes settle on the windowsill. You rinse with salted clove water and spit discreetly into the hearth, where it sizzles like punctuation. Today, the road is quiet, but you have a visit planned. An older man on the far side of the village, Old Mickle, whose teeth are as legendary as his stubbornness, has finally agreed to a check-in. You wrap yourself in 3 layers, pack your herbs, twigs, and a salve that smells alarmingly like boiled nettles, and begin the walk. Mickle greets you by grunting. His cottage smells like onions and defeat. You inspect his teeth while he grumbles about how things were better when everyone just gnawed on bark and ignored their problems. You counter by reminding him he once used fireplace ash as seasoning and didn't realize it for a week. He snorts, which is his version of agreement. His gums are irritated. His molars have grooves that look like they were chewed on by a confused squirrel. You clean gently, apply a mint and clove rinse, and recommend no turnips for a few days. He makes a face, but he listens. He gives you a bottle of cider as thanks. It's cloudy and suspiciously warm. You take it anyway. Historical fact of the hour. Many medieval elders were wary of new remedies, even ones involving plants they used every day. The shift from spiritual to herbal medicine was gradual and uneven. Older villagers often stuck to charms, chants, and hot compresses over rinses or pastes. Wisdom wasn't just knowledge. It was pattern and habit and defiance. You walk home slowly, snow crunching beneath your boots, the smell of mint lingering in your scarf. Back in your cottage, you light a fire and set your brush to soak in vinegar. You write in your ledger, Mickle, resistant but softening. Add honey to next rinse. Make it feel like a treat. You chuckle and drink the cider. It tastes like apples and rebellion. That night, you clean your teeth slowly. In silence, the fire crackling beside you. Outside, the snow deepens. Inside, your breath is sweet, and your smile, even unseen, is steady. You wake to find your tools frozen. Your rinse bowl has a delicate crust of ice over the top, and the corner of your herb shelf smells sharply of frostbitten thyme. You tap the ice gently with your fingernail and sigh. Winter has officially moved in. You thaw the bowl near the hearth. Chew your morning twig until it frays, and dab it into a paste that now includes dried juniper. It tastes like pine and attitude. Your breath fogs the air as you brush. The cold makes your gums ache in new and interesting ways, but you finish with resolve. You spit into the coals and nod once, like you've just survived a small battle, which, honestly, you have. Later in the morning, the blacksmith's apprentice appears at your door, wrapped in 3 cloaks and holding a chipped mug full of something brown. "Grandmother," he says, gesturing behind him. "She bit into a chestnut and saw stars." You follow him through the slush, past the village green, where snow has turned everything into the color of boiled flour. Her cottage is warm, fragrant with dried pears and wet wool. She's sitting by the fire, jaw clenched, cheek puffed, eyes narrowed like she's challenging the pain to a duel. You introduce yourself. She nods once, then opens her mouth. One of her front teeth is cracked, a clean diagonal line like a tiny landslide. You wince on her behalf. She doesn't flinch. You clean around it carefully with a soft elder twig dipped in salt water and honey. Then, you pack a bit of clove salve on the fracture and wrap it with thin linen soaked in cooled mint infusion. She bites down slowly, breathes through her nose, nods. "Better?" she rasps. Feels like someone finally listened. Historical fact of the hour: dental fractures were often packed with plant resins, honey, or softened wax to prevent exposure to cold air or infection. In some cases, linen or leather strips were used to bind cracked teeth, and herbal compresses were applied externally to reduce swelling. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. She pays you with a bundle of smoked herbs and a cracked spoon she claims is lucky. You accept both. Back at home, you set the herbs to dry, boil fresh rinse, and update your notes. You write chestnut fracture, cool rinse before wrapping. Honey helpful. Grandmothers don't bluff. You spend the rest of the day boiling herbs in vinegar to preserve them. The smell is powerful, somewhere between medicine and very judgmental soup. As dusk settles, you chew a stick of elder, brush gently with your new winter paste, and sip warm thyme tea. You fall asleep near the fire, curled like a comma, your breath soft in the cold air. Outside, snow falls. Inside, nothing hurts. The village is muffled this morning. Snow piles thick on rooftops. Branches sag under the weight of it. And the paths are more suggestion than solid ground. Everything is white and still, like the world forgot what motion feels like. You rise slowly, rubbing warmth back into your fingers before reaching for your morning tools. The fire is down to faint coals, but the smell of ash and rosemary still lingers. You light a small flame and warm your rinse, mint and sage, with a sliver of dried apple peel for sweetness. Your toothbrush twig is fur today, soaked overnight and still faintly sticky. It leaves a piney taste in your mouth, like chewing a forest in miniature. You scrub gently, appreciating the way the fibers glide between your teeth like threads through cloth. You spit carefully into the fireplace and nod to yourself, still standing, still chewing. There's a knock not long after sunrise, urgent, but not panicked. You open the door to find two shepherd boys, bundled in cloaks, holding a cloth-wrapped object like it might explode. "We think it's a tooth," one says. They unwrap it to reveal, yes, a tooth. Large, mostly whole, slightly purple, from last night's mulled wine. You ask whose it is. "Uncle Wren," they say. "He sneezed, and it came out." You pack your kit and follow them through the snow. Uncle Wren is sitting upright on a stool when you arrive, holding a mug of hot cider and staring at the fire with the 1,000-yard stare of a man recently betrayed by his own mouth. He lifts a hand in greeting. "Didn't even chew," he says. "It just left." You inspect the spot. Clean. No swelling. No signs of infection. You clean the area anyway with a clove-soaked cloth and offer a chew stick to keep the blood moving. He accepts it like it's a prize. Historical fact of the hour. In the late medieval period, spontaneous tooth loss was sometimes interpreted as a bad omen, especially if the tooth fell out without pain. Superstitions ranged from impending illness to a death in the family. The practical explanation, gum disease, was often ignored in favor of the more poetic. You gently tell Wren it was probably the cider and not the spirits. He doesn't believe you, but he smiles anyway. You return home with the boys, who ask 27 questions about teeth, curses, kissing, and whether chewing on bones makes you stronger. You answer the ones that won't get them grounded. Back at your cottage, the snow has crept in through the shutter cracks. You push it back with a broom and boil a fresh rinse to keep the cold out of your bones. Fennel, salt, vinegar, strong, enough to wake a monk. You brush again before bed, not because you need to, but because it feels like a closing act, like folding a blanket or blowing out a candle. The fire crackles beside you. The window frost etches slow, ghostly spirals in the glass. You dream of tiny white stones, laid gently into place, one by one. The days are short now. Sunrise arrives reluctantly, dragging pale gold across the snow, before fading again into the bruised purples of winter twilight. Your chores move with the light, slow, careful, respectful of cold joints and slipperier paths. This morning, you chew a warmed cherry wood twig. It was a gift from a merchant who passed through last summer, wrapped in beeswax and advice. It has a mild taste, just a hint of sweetness. You brush slowly, thoughtfully, then rinse with a chamomile and vinegar infusion that smells like a very clean meadow. Your mouth feels polished, calm, satisfied. You've started writing down some of your recipes on real parchment, not just scraps. There's talk of a scribe visiting soon, and someone joked that maybe your tooth scrolls could be copied. You laughed, but now you're wondering. You spend part of the day making small bundles of herbs for winter trade. Mint, sage, fennel, and lavender, tied with twine. You wrap them in linen with a sprig of yarrow tucked in like a secret. In the afternoon, a young woman arrives with her baby. She isn't sick, but she wants to learn how to care for the little one's teeth when they come. You show her the softest twigs. You talk about salt water, cloth wipes, and patience. You explain how the first teeth arrive like uninvited guests, screaming, drooling, and demanding all the attention. She laughs. So do you. Historical fact of the hour. Medieval midwives and mothers often rubbed a baby's gums with soft leather, dried rose petals, or even mashed dates to soothe teething pain. Tiny chew toys made from linen knots or polished wood were common, and herbal infusions were used both as medicine and prayer. The young mother leaves with a bundle of mint and a sliver of clean birch, worn smooth by fire-polished hands. You note the visit in your ledger and feel, for a brief moment, like part of a lineage, one mouth helping another, one tooth at a time. You clean your own teeth again before sleep, carefully, like a final blessing. The night is quiet. Even the wind holds its breath. You fall asleep with a peppermint aftertaste and the weight of something simple and beautiful. Care. The scribe arrives on a sled. It's pulled by a mule with a bad attitude and decorated with bells that do not jingle so much as clatter in protest. The man himself is wrapped in 3 layers of wool and carries an inkwell strapped to his belt like a sword. You watch him from your doorway, twig in hand, half chewed and mint-scented. He introduces himself with the kind of formality that makes the chickens nervous. Then he gestures to a rolled parchment under his arm. "I've come to record your methods," he says, with the seriousness of someone discussing grain taxes or spiritual inheritance. You blink, he clarifies. Word of your toothcraft has reached the prior. He wishes a record for posterity and maybe for personal use. You nod slowly, then invite him in and put the kettle on. He sits awkwardly on your stool, ink freezing at the edge of his quill, and asks you to begin from the start. So you do. You tell him about your first ache, about the chew sticks and the vinegar, the clove poultices, the elder twigs and mint, the rinses boiled in borrowed pots and stirred with hope. You speak slowly, letting him catch each word. He writes like someone who's used to transcribing sermons, not recipes involving fennel and salt. You show him your powders, your brushes, your bundles of dried herbs. You demonstrate a proper technique with a cherrywood stick while he watches, blinking like he's never seen someone brush their teeth before. He asks about origins. You shrug. Folk wisdom, mostly. Trial and error. Some advice from grandmothers, a bit from monks, a bit from ghosts. He writes that down. Historical fact of the hour. Some early medieval herbal manuscripts included notations from local practitioners. Scribes would interview folk healers and record their recipes in Latin, often with charming misunderstandings. Powder for the hum of teeth, likely referred to toothache, not music, but the scribes preserved the phrasing anyway. By dusk, the scribe has 10 pages of notes and 3 cold fingers. You give him a salve for the latter. He asks what you call this work. You pause. It's just care, you say. It's remembering what hurts and choosing not to ignore it. He writes that down too. He leaves you with a copper coin and a smile missing 2 molars. You rinse your mouth in warm sage water, brush gently with hawthorn, and sit quietly as the fire sighs low. That night, you sleep under heavy blankets with ink on your fingers and the odd feeling that someone, somewhere, will one day Read your words and know that teeth mattered. Even here, even now, snow piles higher today, enough that rooftops begin to blend into the sky, and children disappear waist deep in drifts. You wake slowly, stretch carefully, and listen for any new creaks in your jaw. Nothing, not even a whisper of ache. You smile. You're still surprised by how easy it is now. You chew a cherry twig, your last one, and dip it in a fresh blend of mint, fennel, and chalk. The taste is crisp, clean, confident. You brush gently, spit into the ashes, and rinse with clove, tea that's been warming beside the hearth since dawn. Your teeth hum quietly, not from pain, from absence of it. You spend the morning repairing your herb shelves. A rat, curious, optimistic, chewed through a pouch of dried sage and now smells aggressively minty. You chase it off with a broom and mutter about boundaries. By midday, a pair of travelers knock on your door. They heard about you from the scribe. One's a merchant, the other a seamstress. Both have aching jaws and snow in their boots. You welcome them in, warm their hands, and brew a rinse of juniper and honey. You show them your tools, your methods, and even let them pick their own twigs. The merchant chooses ash. The seamstress, elder, good instincts both. They leave with smiles and less pain, and a recipe. You update your ledger. Visitors from the road preferred warmth over sting. Juniper successful with travelers. Added to gentle blend. Historical fact of the hour. Traveling apothecaries and herb men were common in the late medieval period, often passing along knowledge between isolated communities. Recipes changed subtly from region to region, like folklore passed hand to hand. You wonder how far your recipes might travel. Maybe to the coast, maybe farther. You clean your teeth again before bed. Ritual now, like washing hands or tending fire. Your tools are worn smooth from use. Your ledger is full of smudges and wisdom. You sleep with your mouth open, not in pain, but in peace. And no part of you fears the cold. You wake with sunlight on your face. Real sunlight, not filtered through clouds, not softened by snow. Bright golden light slicing across your cottage floor, like someone remembered how to paint. It feels like a reward, like the weather's apology for weeks of silence. You sit up slowly, savoring the warmth, the creak of your knees, the stillness in your jaw. You chew a softened birch twig, the last of your winter batch, and smile at the way it splinters obediently into bristles. You mix your gentlest powder, sage, fennel, salt, and a whisper of lavender. The brushing is smooth, rhythmic, no pain, no resistance, just maintenance, just a continuation of care. You rinse with chamomile water, spit into the hearth, and breathe in the spring like air seeping through the window. Outside, the snow is pulling back like a blanket folded by invisible hands. Mud shows beneath it, grass even. The village is blinking into motion. Someone chops wood. Someone else laughs too, loud for this hour. You smile. You spend the morning airing out herbs, hanging new bundles, repacking the dried stock that survived the freeze. You organize your twigs by texture. You update your notes. Then, mid-morning, a group arrives, 6 of them, from other villages. Wrapped in cloaks, cheeks red from cold, they've brought questions, stories, and one of them swears, an infected wolf tooth. You gently suggest it's probably just a stone, but admire the confidence. You show them what you've learned. You let them hold your brushes, smell your powders, stir your rinses. One man starts sketching the shape of your birch twig as though it's a holy relic. Another weeps after rinsing with warm sage, says his jaw hasn't been quiet since the last harvest. You write it all down. Pain softened by warm rinses. Comfort, more important than taste. New people, learning to listen to their mouths. Historical fact of the hour. Some medieval communities developed shared oral traditions. Not just stories, but remedies. One village might specialize in healing broths, another in poultices, another in tooth powders. Knowledge moved along paths, worn by feet and memory. You walk them to the edge of the village as the sun begins to dip, giving each a final bundle of mint and a smile full of your own well-won teeth. That night, you clean slowly, reverently, like a prayer, but quieter. Your tools are worn smooth. Your fire is steady. Your breath tastes like sage and spring. You sleep feeling full, not of food or pride, but of peace. A kind of peace you used to believe only lived in other people's mouths. Today, someone brings you a mirror. Not a fancy one, just a small circle of polished bronze, smudged at the edges, tucked into a cloth like treasure. They say it was found in a buried chest. You suspect it was found in a cousin's cellar. Either way, it shines enough. You sit by the window and hold it up. And for the first time in a long while, you look at your own teeth. They're uneven, of course, slightly yellowed, a few worn down, one a little crooked, but clean, strong, whole, still yours. You smile at yourself, then laugh at how strange that feels. Later, you walk to the stream, the one you used to visit with a sore mouth and no plan. It's flowing freely now, cracked ice trailing behind it like forgotten parchment. You rinse your face in the cold water. You drink from your cupped hands. You chew a fresh willow twig. Rinse with mint. Spit discreetly into the reeds. The cycle continues. Back at your cottage, you open the ledger. The pages are nearly full. The last line you write is simple. It worked. You set down the quill. You clean your teeth one last time for the day, gently, thoroughly, lovingly, and then you sit beside the fire and let your body soften. You breathe in the smell of herbs and ash. You feel the warmth on your legs, the solid presence of your little house around you, and the steady thrum of a jaw no longer at war with itself. The fire crackles lower now, a soft murmur beneath the weight of silence. Outside, the wind drifts lazily between trees, stirring frost and thaw in equal measure. You've closed the shutters, but the scent of night still seeps in. Pine bark, cooling soil, the last breath of lavender from the sachet above your bed. You lie back, wrapped in layers of wool, and close your eyes. The room darkens as the fire settles into ember. The warmth fades slow and even, like the day gently letting go. In the distance, someone coughs. A baby cries. A dog barks once, then twice, and goes quiet. But inside, everything is still. Your hands rest on your stomach. Your breath moves gently in and out. The The pain that once kept you from sleep is gone, replaced by a quiet pride, not loud, not boastful, just there, like a lamp on a shelf that's always been lit. You think of twigs and herbs, of mint sprigs tied in cloth, of laughter around the fire, of brushing gently by candlelight, and finding in that small act something sacred. You think of how care begins in small places, in soft fibers, in warm rinses, in the choice to try again tomorrow. You drift. The last thing you feel is the cool of linen on your cheek and the soft taste of a sage still lingering on your tongue. Sleep pulls you under like warm water. You let it. No more aches, no more waiting, just the hush of the fire and the quiet smile of someone who kept their teeth